Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's uLaw webinar on Insights and Analytics. Today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD credits, so just letting you know up front. But we're going to talk a lot about the capability of the product with regards to the types of reporting, the kind of data points that we're able to provide you, and the different formats in which we're able to provide these insights and data points to you that of course means more to you as a business. This is not necessarily from a compliance standpoint. It's more in terms of business ownership and using the data that we're showing you in terms of these analytics and insights and making informed, smart business decisions that are going to help profitability and efficiencies around your business. Okay, so that's what today's webinar is about, and it is being recorded and will be available to you early as Monday next week. So like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has a specific agenda. As briefly mentioned, we'll talk about how uLaw provides you the opportunity to provide a 360-degree vision to your business. So we're not just talking about revenue, we're just not talking about expense, we're talking about the 9 yards of how you intake clients, how that translates into matters, how each and every financial transaction finally boils down to a meaningful financial document or a report or an insight that you can now use to be better at your business and how you operate your business every day moving forward. We're also able to provide you with pieces of information that you may not sometimes even recognize as an important data set. For example, how many pro bono hours have you spent in this particular day? Who are the top clients that have taken the pro bono time period from your law firm? Just to give you an example. Analyzing the accounting information beyond just ledgers and journals, we're able to give you insight about days of sale, aging. We're able to give you who are your top paying customers, what are the top areas of practice where you make money, where are you spending most of your marketing dollars, where are you getting your clients from. So because then you can compare the risk reward and then start to make informed decisions about where and how you invest your marketing dollars, right? So all of this put together, we hope, gives you a better insight into your own legal business. And all of that is available to you within the same platform for that same low cost. There's no additional cost to that specific series of features that we offer. Now really moving forward into some of the top areas that we believe the analytics would help, starting with a sole practitioner to a large law firm, comes around the aspects of, first and foremost, your revenue, because everyone definitely wants to understand how much of money have I made in a time period. We talk about categorizing then revenue based on clients. We categorize revenue, of course, then based on areas of practice. We then further take that revenue compared with the expense, because uLaw is not just a matter management system, we're a full-fledged business accounting system built right into the product. So we also allow you to capture the operating expenses of your business, right? Not the disbursements, but all the operating costs to run your business. And we use that, of course, as an opportunity to give you insights into your expenses, further categorizing them by the different expense accounts. What are your top areas of expenses? Is it rent? Are you spending a lot of money on printing and stationery? Are you spending a lot of money on marketing? So where are you spending that money? And then at the end of the month or the week or even the day, we're able to give you the insight around profitability. How much of money have you made? How much of expenses that you have? What's the profit and loss? This is basic. Any accounting system should most certainly give you insights around that. But then based on the legal nature of your business, we're able to further subcategorize these analytics, such as work in progress. Where are all the work that you and also your other colleagues are putting in have not yet converted that into an invoice? Maybe you have docketed, maybe you have invoiced, but you have not yet done the eligible trust transfers, which is a very important step that a legal firm needs to take to make their money by moving money from trust to general. So we certainly give you all of the top-line analytics that you should expect out of an accounting system, but we also hope to give you more insights that are specific to the legal nature of business that you run. And we're going to certainly look at different examples of those types later today in the webinar. Now, beyond reporting, beyond giving you a report that you can print, because some of the data, of course, are best represented in the form of a paper that you can either print or you can digitally download as a PDF document. But then there's a lot of information that we believe that you as a owner of the business should have handy. If you want, to ask about specific questions about your business, you should be able to just ask the system, and it should be in terms of answers that are straightforward, quick, and very precise. So we then introduce the concept of analytics that now gives you information, of course, in various not only formats, but also across devices. So today you have analytics right on your mobile phone. If you've downloaded the uLaw app, you would now be able to generate analytics with the same piece of data that you have in your uLaw database across your mobile phone, across the web application that you have. And within the web application too, the analytics are spread across the specificity of that request or question. So it's the analytics regarding client intake, or the analytics around matter management, or your analytics question regarding the accounting information. Okay? And of course, as I mentioned, later today I'm going to walk you through the different menu options that you have within the uLaw product to generate as well as get these results out of the system. What do you know? That's all I had for SlideShare. I just wanted to set the context for what you should expect out of this fast and easy but very effective webinar that talks to you about what happens to all the data that you've been entering into the uLaw system. And if you don't know this already, what opportunities do you have as a user to derive insights, analytics, data points out of the system as well? Okay. Now I'm logged into my fixtures uLaw account for Mr. Roger Moore. And typically in my demonstrations, I talk to you about how do you add a client, how do you generate a matter. We talk about docketing disbursements. We talk about Law Society compliance. But I'm going to draw your attention and request your attention to this key menu option called document generation. So across most of our screens, you have this one menu option called document generation. Typically, we're stuck within our documents that are important from a perspective of compliance, or other documents that are more transactional in requirements. So generating client ID verification, maybe your source of contact that are compliant in nature. Maybe you do a quick conflict check. But today, we're going to talk about this further subcategorization of the document generation around reports. Okay. So if you were to ask yourself, I want to understand the hygiene of my entire business, then you move into what we call as the accounts, because that's where we store all of the financial information. So if you really want to understand, all right, as of today, I want to understand what is my revenue for every each, what are my expenses, or simply what's my profit and loss look like. Okay? I can pretty much have a top-down approach. So now I can generate this for the entire year in the form of a document. But let's say I do not want this for the whole year. I really want to understand, what are my profit and losses right now for a very short time period. I want to be able to compare it with some date ranges. Then we have what we call as an analytics engine. That's one of the many options right at the bottom. And this is where we're able to tell you quick and easy before you even generate it for this month. Right now it just tells you it's a profitable business for this month. The total income statement. Of course, the P&L statement is going to give you the same information, but I'm sure you can appreciate the format in which this has been provided to you is, of course, way different. Okay? It gives you the top 3 revenue points. And we also convert these data points in a Q&A format. So imagine if you were to ask yourself the question, am I operating in a profit or loss? There is an answer specific to that question. So we've kind of devised standard questions. Sometimes it's about 15 different questions in certain criteria, such as this. There could be 12 questions. What is the operating mode? Is it profit or loss? What's the total revenue? What's the total expense? What are the top revenue and expense categories? So you can clearly see that there was about $3,000 of revenue that was received in this time period for real estate. And if you look at the expenses, we of course understand that about $706 was the total amount of expense that was spent from the 1st of October till date. Okay? But if you look at a traditional reporting or analytics, if you will, if you look at it that way, this is a P&L document that's more in tune with the expectation, or if you're an accountant, probably, right? Gives you a much broader brush for the entire year in terms of where that revenue has been split. It tells you all the different categories of your expenses, how much of money was spent, and for this year, what was the total income, total expense, and what the profit is. So you can clearly see about 67% has gone towards revenue generations, about 35% for expenses. Okay? So this is really setting the stage for what you should expect in terms of the final formatting of the same data. Now, one of the advantages of running the analytical engine with the uLaw is the ability for you to now compare and contrast the same question across date ranges. So let's say we want to run this for this month. What was my profit and loss? And let's say I want to run this against my entire year. So how is this particular month compared to the entire year? So it's been a profitable year. It has been a profitable month as well. And you can pause this and just use the rewind or fast forward button to say, all right, what is the total profit? And now you understand how this month compares to the overall profitability of your business till date. So you could see that the month of October has subsequently provided impact to the overall profit and loss of your business, because you've made quite a good percentage, almost 20% of your profitability has come from this month, right? You can do that for expenses too. You can say, what were my expenses for this month? And what was my expense like for the entire year. Okay, so you can clearly see for this particular month you have 3 expense categories, and you can use this little zoom button. It tells you about 53% came from disbursements, fees paid for client. Another 30% came from stationery. This was for this specific month. So almost about 68% went towards fees paid on behalf of clients, and the remainder was the printing and stationery. Whereas if you look at the overall year, it's a different story. You have about 31 plus another 37, so almost 70% came from disbursements of expenses, because again, disbursements are a type of expense. It's just that it's a recoverable expense from the client. And the remaining spread, you still have 11% coming from miscellaneous, about 9% from office supplies, and 10% printing and stationery. Now, another important question is categorizing your revenue. So yes, you made this tremendous profit, $69,000. That's great. But if you want to quickly take a snapshot and say, all right, starting November, I want to run a marketing campaign. And depending on each law firm's appetite, of course, and the specialization, you may choose different channels, whether that's Google AdWords, whether it may be spending money on virtual networking events, maybe word-of-mouth solutions, referral solutions. One of the important components to understand is how would that impact your revenue? Would that reflect in a revenue that's bringing money to your business? So the first thing figuring out is the fee book chart by category. So if I choose my fee book chart by category, and again, I'll compare it for this month, going with that same flow, you can clearly once again do a bar chart or a pie chart that tells you where you're making your money. So as a business, you could see the top performers are real estate, at about 23% of your overall revenue comes from real estate. About 20% comes from criminal law, right? So you could see the spread. And now you compare this with your strategy moving forward and where you want to expend your money towards the marketing channels. So are you spending that virtual networking dollars towards real estate related events? Are you spending the money more towards criminal law related events? Right? So that's what this particular chart gives you. And once again, you compare, contrast it between date ranges. We feel these are probably the 2 most used analytical data points that our customers use on a regular basis. We see that it's a widely used data point for most law firms, despite whatever system of record they may be using, because this is more operational, but the operational data points allows for tactical and strategic decision making. Now, if I were to narrow it down further into more specific operational insights and analytics that are specific to your legal firm, let's talk about unbilled hours. This is very important. Every law firm wants to maximize their billability, not just a solo practitioner business, but across all their colleagues across their business and everyone else who is contributing, right, to the revenue of that business. This clearly indicates this quick insight that here are some of the matters for which you have not yet billed the hours for this month. So in the month of October, you have 5 matters: the eviction of a tenant, there's 2 evictions of tenants, and there's another small claims or SCC for another client. And you can use, and these are file numbers that we give you, right? PC172920. Those are, so what you do is now use this to take actions. So let me go into my quick view. And choose that particular matter, because now we've given you the insight that those are some of the matters for which you've not yet billed. Here you see it's a first matter for a specific client. Click in, move into that particular matter. That's going to give you the ability for you to make those changes. And clearly, you could see that there's an invoice pending for this particular file. So do the right thing of going ahead and generating that invoice. And this is how the data points, the insights, and the analytics help you move forward in that profit-making workflow. So let's go ahead and generate that invoice. Once you've done that, now you could see that that element is not there anymore because it's already been taken care of. So the insights and analytics are not static. So that's another aspect to the overall data points. Some data points, of course, are static in nature. You know, what's your first name, last name, maybe your legal firm. That's not changed for a certain period of time. Your address, correspondence, phone number. Those are types of data points that don't necessarily change often. But a lot of the other data points, especially the financial transactions, the nature of them is to continuously evolve as you work through your workflow of taking actions that reflect these financial transactions. Another very important category that we often come across people asking us, and then we lead them to this, is the pro bono. We divvy up your pro bono both by clients and by the total hours. So let me first look at the pro bono by clients. And let me say if I do this for the entire year. Now, the more the data, the more significant the feedback from our system too. Because if you've been using uLaw for a few years now, you could go back and also look at this same pro bono charts by clients for a certain date range. And you can go back in time saying, what was this last year? Right? So you can go back and say, as of December 2019, go back in time. So this is comparing my current year to my previous year. Of course, it could be financial year or the calendar year, whatever makes sense. And this gives you a contrast, of course, of the different individuals. And we look at the top 6 or 7 individuals. We have a tabular version, we have a bar chart, and then we have a pie chart of that as well. Okay? Same thing goes for your pro bono charts by hours. So for this entire year, we're going to look at, and where does this come from? You can clearly see this year, you had 84% of your overall billable hours, or hours that you've spent as billable hours, and the 16% was pro bono. So if you want to compare this to last year, this is a very interesting data point. Okay, so last year you had 79%, so a much lesser billable time. So clearly the analytics and insight in this case has given you the information that you've certainly improved on the billability of your business. So you've done well to increase your billable hours from 79% to 84%. When you're working on a day-to-day basis, heads down, very operational, you're all about catching up with the dockets and disbursements that you have to take care of, the revenue that you generate, none of this really matters beyond a point. These data points and the ability for you to generate these data points are always available to you, but you'd mostly use these data points during a lull period, whether it's a weekend. We have a lot of clients who do this on a disciplined weekend basis, where they're always comparing and acknowledging the hygiene of their business as it stands today. And they want to learn from the past, learn from mistakes, learn from data and insights based on what they've already captured and reported on. Okay? At any given time, please feel free to use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have. So one of the key takeaways is that as part of the uLaw product, you do have this very important analytical engine that gives you about 15 or 20 different dashboards that you can pretty much compare and contrast. And of course, if you want to compare 3 months or even 6 months, you can clearly do that. You can just go into the dashboard and you can say the number of analytical items to be 6. And now we would then give you now the ability to have 6 different web widgets, as we call them, for you to run comparative data capture. Instead of doing it for 2 months, now you can compare the same question across 3 months, or you can ask the same question across 6 months, if that's how much of insight that you like. If you're a sole practitioner, one of the quick questions that you may want to understand is your drawings. If you're set up that way to make money for your own self, personal revenue, is how much of money have you drawn for this particular month? Or you can say for the entire year. Okay. So you have different individuals within the company who have different draws for that particular year. So there's a total of 5 employees. And this is Mr. Magneto, Mr. Martin Fisher, and you can have the same insight right on your phone. But if you like this in a format that's more reportable to your accountant or bookkeeper, then you would choose the document generation option, and you have the same data set. This time the formatting of that is a PDF that gives you a document that you can print or share via as a PDF. Okay, so same information. So $600, $175. That's the same answer here. $600 for Magneto. It's $175 for Martin Fisher. There you go. Just a different format. Imagine the same power right on your phone. Instead of generating these PDF documents, if you just want to understand what are the top 5 people who have drawn money, you can do it right on the phone. If you want further details, saying I want to understand how did Magneto draw the $600, what's the further subcategorization details, then you can generate this report that tells you by date when that particular money was drawn. Okay, so that's how reports and analytics work hand in hand. Now, some very interesting data points is if you want to understand the total invoices that you've generated for a time period. Let's say for this quarter, you want to understand how many invoices have you generated as a business. Now, the question itself does not necessarily relate to it being available on a phone, because you could have at least 200 to 300 invoices in a particular quarter, and hence it's better served as a report. So you can clearly see the total number of invoices. It's about 13 for this entire year. And we give you some insights around that as well. So we tell you the first invoice that was raised was for a purchase of house. It was a real estate matter. The last invoice was that for another different matter. For Mr. Bernard Shaw, you have 2 invoices. Most of the others, of course, this is just starting 1st of October because it's this quarter moving forward. Okay? So the last 15 days, this is what's happened. Aging. Now, we do have certain key, I would say, important analytics around aging, right within our analytics too. So if you really want to understand overall expense and revenue, you could of course use this. But when you look at your aging, that once again, like the invoice list, is a more detailed report. Now, in terms of aging and some other examples, we also give you the ability to download this as an Excel sheet. Okay? So you can do this as a PDF, or you can also choose to have it downloadable as an Excel sheet. The next set of analytics and piece of information is now going to move further. As we look at the top-down approach, we're going to look at the matter-based. So this was the overall business side of things. Overall revenue, overall expenses, profitability. Sometimes you probably want to focus it more towards a specific matter. And then that's where you jump in to the actual matter itself. And you use the same document generation to generate documents and reports that are more specific to this specific matter that we have. Okay, so if you're looking at Mr. Pandya Chandran's first matter, if you look at the timeline reports, the legal aid statements, timesheet, these are data points that are more specific to the nature of this very specific matter. Okay, so let me look at the settlement account statements. And these data points could not only be operational in nature, sometimes these may be compliance in nature as well. Because towards, let's say, closure of a matter, a client, or it's the expectation of the Law Society that to have a more holistic closure to any matter, that you provide them with the final settlement statement. Okay, so what did you work on? What was the different transactions? So clearly tells you there were 2 different checks provided towards a $7,000 retainer overall in the trust for this specific matter. You had a couple of disbursements that were taken out of the trust account, or actually 4, amounting to about $1,200. And that's the balance in trust. So you still have about $7,000 in trust for this very specific client in this specific matter. Okay? And if there are multiple matters for that same client, then you specifically choose the matter within the drop-down. And you can see this is an archived matter. And so is this. So you have reports and analytics that are more towards the business. Then you move towards reports and analytics that are more specific to the individual matters for that client. If you want information specific to the overarching client themselves, then you move into our contacts. And let's use that same example. So let's pick and choose Pandya Chandran as the example here. So I'm going to just type in that search button the client's name. And here, if you generate a document such as the fee book, and let me download this document. It's also available as a quick insight right here. It clearly tells you that as well. But let me show you the document because this will give you a better perspective. Now, when you look at it at a matter level, it's giving you further details specific to the matter. But if you're looking at a client level, then uLaw is presenting to you information that summarizes all of the matters that are involved for this specific client. So here we're looking at the first matter, the total invoiced, and you can clearly see there's also a pending trust transfer. So this client fee book is an important document that you can now use at an operational level to reflect upon the actions that you or your colleagues have to take within the firm to make and generate that revenue for that immediate need. So the fact that you have not moved this $1,400 is alarming enough. So you would pretty much do the right thing. You would move into that matter, and there's eligible trust funds sitting right there in this matter. So let's go ahead and take an action. So what do we do with that insight? Let's take an action. Let's transfer that pending trust transfer amount. So for this, I just clicked on the question mark, or you could just go ahead and use the action button, whatever is convenient to you. Pick and choose the legal fee, moving it from trust to general. Let's write ourselves a check. And there you go. Now you've actually taken a responsible action based on the data that was presented to you. Right? So if you go back and generate that same fee book, just like that previous example that we had, the data has evolved. And there you have it. The total invoice, total paid. You don't have that anymore. Okay, so that's how you would use the reporting capability and the data points that are more specific to both a client and more specific to a matter as well. Okay. Now within the contacts, we also have this mostly used document called Source of Contact. I've used this in many of my demonstrations. This gives you an idea of where are you bringing clients from? What is the source of that client? So let's say for this entire year, once again, you have the option to generate this as a PDF or an Excel sheet. If you're downloading this in Excel, of course, you can massage the data and you can write formulas to do better things with that. But let's say you're curious about, you know where your revenue is coming from, you know where your expenses are going, and you want to know what's driving the clients to your business. So there you go. For the entire year, based on your data entry, it's a really widespread of sources of contacts, right? You got 18% mostly referrals, 16% others. You have family at about 19%. And the single document, of course, should give you the insight to take actionable next steps. Again, we also give you contacts that you have not yet categorized, or clients rather, that you have not yet categorized. So we know about 18 referrals of source of contact came from family, 17 from other referrals. Facebook has given you about 12 clients. Google search, some other networking marketing events. And we also give you the data around the clients that you have not yet entered. Once again, you don't look at this every day. But source of contact is a compliance document, so either towards an audit or if you want to take that one weekend to make sure all the data is clear and it's up to date, we can look at, let's say, Doug Johnson as an example. Use the search one more time, and let me say Doug Johnson. Edit this client. As you can see, the source of contact has not yet been entered. And let's just say this was a Facebook as well. Maybe they saw your advertisement on Facebook. And now you update that information. Once again, as like anything else that I've shown you, that data evolves. And when the next time you generate the source of contact, of course, you should expect that the data has changed. And your percentage of web Facebook should have slightly gone up. And that's exactly what's happened. It moved from 12% to 13%, and your not categorized dropped from 57 to 56. Okay? So really that's pretty much what we wanted to leave you with is as you enter information into the system, we capture it not only to safeguard your compliance and audit readiness, but we also capture the data so that we can present these very interesting set of pieces of information in the format of reports, analytics that you can quickly visualize both on your web format as well as your phone. And even within the web, we have multiple areas depending on the nature of the questioning of that data, whether that's overarching business related, in which case it's under your accounts. If it's specific to a matter, it's under matters. If it's specific to a client, then of course it's under contacts. Okay. Now one of the more recent additions, I'm going to leave you with this for today. One of the more recent additions that we have introduced is in our Quick View tab. And if you go into our document generation there, we have, I would say, the bigger data analytics. So more so big data analytics. So we give you now a checkpoint of important actions that you have to take from a client-specific, matter-specific, and overall account-specific. Okay, so from a compliance perspective, let me download that report. So this gives you the analytics around overall corporate analytics with regards to compliance. So you can see the total number of clients in the firm who have not yet been categorized. This is for the overall business, not specific to any term. This is not for this year. This is across the entire database, across the several years that you use the system. Okay? So this is a compliance report, which we clearly see that the Law Society auditors do ask for. So working on the source of contact, very important. The total number of clients who have not yet been categorized, right? And we give this over a date range, the total number of clients who have not yet been categorized in the last 180 days, last 6 months. Who are they? Okay. The total number of active matters in the firm that have been inactive or have not even been updated. So this is great. This is actually a Law Society compliance requirement that you understand that there are no matters that have been inactive, which is a good thing. The total number of active matters, which means they have not yet been closed or archived, but have been inactive. So no dockets, no ledgers. You have not done trust transfers. You have not docketed, dispersed. There's about 23 such matters. Okay, so on and so forth. All right. You can generate, and this could take some while, but you can just say all the analytics. So instead of the individuals, we have a single document that gives you all of this information in one report. And this is something that our clients have started doing. They've started downloading these reports, and depending on how much of data you have in your database, this could take a few seconds to maybe a minute, but not long. And some interesting little tidbits or facts around your business. Okay, this is information that's not necessarily compliance only related. So for example, the number one category of your referral source, the client referral. It tells you right away you have 73 clients overall in your business. The number of closed matter in the firm in the last 90 days. The total percentage of active matters in the last 90 days. So almost every matter in the last 90 days that you've created are all active. So maybe that's a clue for you to review those matters and make sure that you're closing once the actual work has completed. The total amount of invoice balance pending. That's the total amount of money that you should collect from all your clients to make the revenue. Of course, this is misleading because this is across the firm, across time period. But of course, if you've kept yourself up to date, this is going to be very relevant. Total amount of pending trust transfer in invoice balances is $2,300. So that's the amount of money that's sitting in your trust funds right now that you should be able to generate and move money right away. So if you look at this and you're like, okay, how do I know which matters they belong to? As I said, the overarching business is around accounts. So you'd go under document generation, and invoice balance is the name of that report. And this is how you use both the insights analytics and the report. So you use the insights analytics for the top line data or information, and you use the report for granular subcategorization of that. Okay. We give you more information too. So again, please take the time, if you're current users of uLaw, to review these analytics and all these different data points that we give you. And again, if you're in the mood, we've also got this little icon. By default, it's turned on. So if you click this and it turns on green, you're going to see little snippets of data pop up every minute or so. Sometimes it's informative, sometimes it's very irritating. And we get it. So that's what we have, and we've given you the control, turning on and turning off. So at any given time, you can just click on it, and it would turn off that. But give it a couple of minutes, and you're going to start to notice, if you see this in green, that we're starting to give you little biteable sizes of data. The data remains to be the same, as you can see. Client referral is to top source. It's the same information that we showed you here. Right? This is a different format. This is a different format. So if you really want to know, out of that $2,000 this month, where's all the pending trust transfers sitting? This is the report. Of course, this is a test database, and hence you have certain data that's not necessarily pragmatic, but you have about $79,000 worth of pending trust transfers. But in the last, let's say just in this year, this is a big one. You have about $8,200 sitting in John Doe's matter. Now what you do based with that information, you go into that specific matter and you do the trust transfer. So from insight to report, from report to an actionable item with the new law. That's typically what we would hope for our clients to do. Okay? John Doe it is. And for quick information, you can just always click on this question mark. It gives you further analytics about that specific matter. The total number of closed matters, again, you can always say I got it and click on this little bell icon at any given time to turn it off. Okay? Once again, I reiterate that beyond compliance, which is most certainly one of the important reasons why our clients continue to use the product, is to be able to capture all the data in one place that's cloud enabled, the ability for the product to generate Law Society compliance documents. But being a full management system that includes business accounting, we provide you with data in many different forms and documents. Take the time to explore anything under reports, under document generation as a general thumb rule, and use the analytics to be able to not only have this information reported, but you can also contrast and compare them across different date ranges. And last but not the least, we highly encourage you to download our app, both available on the iOS and the Android Play stores, and you would be able to drive the same information right from the app as well. Okay? So with that, I will pause and wait for any questions that you may have with regards to today's webinar. It is, of course, being recorded and will be available to you as early as Monday next week. And I'd certainly open the floors for any questions. So please use the chat window to ask away your questions. Thank you. All right, so one of the questions is, how do I view these analytics on my phone? Okay, that's a good question. So you would have to first and foremost download the uLaw app. So you just search for uLaw within your iOS or Android store, and you would download the uLaw app. Let me see if I can quickly toggle my presentation. Just bear with me for a second. And yeah, if you are able to see my screen, this is really my phone, and you can see the uLaw icon. And I downloaded the app. If you haven't already logged in, you can just use the same credentials to log in. And right here, when you see accounts, and if you look at the question mark, this is where you have the analytics. So you click on capital investment by charts, and let's take that same example, fee book by category. And let's say I want to do it for this month, and I hit go. The same piece of information is available to you in this format. So you can click on real estate, miscellaneous, you can see clearly the top 5. If you wanted more, right at the bottom you have this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you want to know the top 6, if you click 6, it's going to give you the top 6, 7, and so forth. It gives you a bar chart as well, right on your phone. So you can clearly see that real estate is the top performer this month. Of course, you can't compare and contrast purely because of the real estate of the phone and the app itself. And if you wanted to do side-by-side comparison, of course, you would use the web version. But for some quick insights, so if you really want to know, okay, profit and loss insight, that's probably one of the most commonly used. So for this entire year, tell me my profit and loss. Right away, it tells you. You can quickly snap this over. And the reason why the total profit is $70,000 is you did that trust transfer of $1,400. And that's why it's more important. Previously, we looked at it, it was $69,000. Now it is $70,000 something because you did not earn that $1,400 because that fund was sitting in your trust transfers. If you remember, we did it for one of the clients. And that is why the uLaw product, how you enter data, and the resulting analytics and data points go hand in hand. Okay? So once again, you download the app, you use your same uLaw credentials to log in. You click on accounts and the question mark right at the top, and that's how you generate the information. Expense by category, it's the same thing. It's the same data point that I'm running out of because I'm logged in as uLawPractice. You can see it's not too bad. It takes, 5 to 10 seconds, really depending on the nature of the question that you're asking. Hope that answered that question. Or are there any more questions? Okay, I'll probably take this as the last question because I have most certainly gone over time, and I do apologize for the slight delay in starting this webinar early on. The last question is, where do I generate the invoice balance? So this is that document. So this is the document that I just generated. It gives you some high-level insights as well. I went into accounts, document generation, other, invoice balance. Okay. Yeah, we do have discounts. So if you want to understand for this entire year, how much of write-off or discounts you've done as a business. We have insight to that. We have insights under almost every menu option. So if you want to know work in progress for this month, a very important, very operational, strategic, however you like to call it, I call it operational, is the work in progress disbursements. One thing is to not be able to recover dockets, but it's most certainly important that you stay on top of the disbursements that you and your other colleagues are spending on behalf of clients. So this is one of the more recent data points you can see, which is great. You don't have any work in progress or unbilled disbursements. And no work in progress dockets as well. That's fantastic. Okay, so I will stop my webinar sharing the session today, and I thank you very much for your patience and participation in today's webinar. We look forward to talking to you next Friday. Thank you very much. Have yourself a fantastic weekend ahead.